Thank you for auditing the Always Positive new music review show hosted by a French professor who's going to be doing something of a two-part review of the new Post Malone album 12 Karat Toothache. One part will just be a straight review, the other will be something of a video essay. Now, I did something like this before with my Jack Harlow review, where I reviewed the album and then also sort of had an investigation about whether or not there is an Elvis of rap music. For the sort of more contemplative piece of this review, I'm going to be providing an intersectional analysis of Post Malone, which is inspired by and informed by the amazing work of FD Signifier. Now, you might notice a similarity that both of these albums that are broken into two parts are white pop rap albums, and I am particularly interested as a white guy who loves and to some extent profits off of hip-hop culture. It's interesting when I see rappers whose lives actually do reflect mine in some way, whose social identities reflect mine in some ways, which is frankly really rare in hip-hop. And so I'm fascinated. I'm fascinated by these questions. But before I get into the sort of more heady part, I just need to say quickly, this is an always positive review show. I didn't want to review Post Malone because I thought I hated Post Malone. I heard that song Rockstar a couple years ago. It caught me at the wrong time. I hated the mumbling. I hated the self-pity. I hate the idea of rap artists acting like being a rock star is cooler than being a rap star. Rock star. I hated that song so much that I held a grudge against 21 Savage. Fortunately, I discovered his music is great. But at the time, I just couldn't stand it. But this album is very likable. It's filled with memorable songs. He's got a great voice. There's smooth production. It's very likable and very interesting. But I always thought that I would hate him forever, that I would never make a review because I would never feel positively. So, like where did this hate come from? Well, I mean, to a certain extent, it's the old man problem. I'm in my mid-40s. I was around when Jay-Z was coming up, that kind of stuff. And to one extent, I sort of initially reject the new emotional content of hip-hop. Like when I was growing up, it was very blocked off and emotionally stunted. And to a certain extent, that's what I wanted it to be. But obviously, if you've been paying attention to my reviews over the last couple of years, I have been loving the direction that hip-hop is going, where it's more emotionally honest. I mean, see my review of Kendrick Lamar's album, right? But then sort of combined with this new emotionalness is this new form of hip-hop. This new SoundCloud, new to me, okay, I know it's been around for a decade, but at the time, when I first heard this SoundCloud rap, I just hated this new form. I hated how mumbly it was, how tinny it was. I felt just whiny. It didn't feel emotional, it felt whiny. Now, my opinion on this has evolved and grown a lot. And what ended up happening is I like a certain amount of those kinds of rappers. Like, I really like Juice WRLD. I could listen to Juice WRLD all day. So when I saw Post Malone and when I had some exposure to his music, I just sort of said, what is he, just Juice WRLD but white? Talking about suicide and death and pills and money and fame. To me, like adding whiteness to this made it somewhat obscene, because implied in white maleness is, of course, white male privilege. So when Juice WRLD sang about it, he grew up, I don't even know exactly how he grew up. I think he actually had a fairly stable upbringing, but still, no matter what, as an African American living in America, okay, I don't edit my videos, so I'm not going to edit out me saying that African Americans living in America. But still, as an African American living in America, about to sing James Brown, he is, no matter what, a victim of institutional and intergenerational racism and the trauma that comes from it, right? So no matter what, I could never quite relate to Juice WRLD's experiences, so I couldn't invalidate them, at least not honestly. So when he was singing about dying and death and feeling like dying and death and suicide and pills, to a certain extent, I just felt like, well, who am I to say how he should feel? So when a white rapper is in this mode, that's where things get tricky. Because as I always say, the thing about hip-hop is that it's the voice of the voiceless. It is not actually, on a global scale, a African-American art at this point. It is a global art that, of course, started by African Americans, perfected by African Americans, popularized by African Americans. But on a global scale, I have no issue with white rappers in most cases. Because sometimes the voiceless in other cultures are white people. It's not really about race. It really is about representation and about being able to speak up for the marginalized. So that's my problem. And sometimes people get angry with me in the comments because obviously I'm a white dude with tons of privilege who's talking about being angry at white dudes with tons of privilege. I'm not angry at them. It's that it sort of undercuts the value of the art form, and it undercuts the meaning of the art form, and it can possibly take away from people who actually need that art form to express themselves in a proper way. And really, even more than Jack Harlow, I think Post Malone might be the best example of a sort of easy target as far as deserving of my frustrations. I mean, the guy's first name is Austin. I mean, he is born in Syracuse, just a little bit that way from me, which is funny. You know, Lou Reed went to college in Syracuse. Stove God Cooks is from Syracuse, and now we have Post Malone. That's a trio I'd like to see. And then he moved to Grapevine, Texas. And you think Texas and you think Dirty South and you think all that stuff. But Grapevine, Texas is, according to my research, the Christmas capital of Texas. It's hard to believe that one of the most popular rappers in the world came from a place that could be called the Christmas capital of anything. If you read the Chamber of Commerce, it's very proud of its low crime and high numbers of golf courses. According to Zillow, the median house price in the town where he grew up is $570,000. Okay? Now, he did have a stepmother, but he was raised in a seems to be fairly stable home in the suburban Dallas area. His father ran concessions for the Dallas Cowboys, so he was a comfortable suburban white dude. Just like me. And just like me, when I was young, to a certain extent, it feels to me like he's looking for an identity. Something to be interesting, other than just being another straight, white, cis, male dude. How do I get the interest? How do I be interesting like these other people who were just born interesting because of the challenges they faced? Okay? I'm speaking pithily here, but I'm also speaking with empathy. Like, I've experienced this myself. This is an experience, and we're going to get to it very soon, that it's a meaningful experience. So, if I was being less courteous to Post Malone, I'd just say, well, very clearly, he just tried to make problems for himself until he was interesting. You know, abusing drugs and becoming an alcoholic and talking about suicide and really leaning into his mental health issues. You know, like leaning into this sort of identity issue. You know, he started off as an alternative musician, and if you go on YouTube, you can see him sing country music like perfectly. It seems like he landed on SoundCloud Rap because that's what was popular then, and he just decided to do that. And he just got himself some face tattoos and diamond teeth, and then now he's a rapper. Like he literally had to make his face look like a rapper's face to then be able to communicate the rapper's experience. So, what I want to do now is tie this all in together before I get to the rest of my review. And I promise I'm going to review this album. There's some really great things to this album. To the research and the work of FD Signifier. I'm going to include a link in the description to go watch his video. He has multiple videos on this topic. I suggest you watch them all. I think FD Signifier is the only other contra tier YouTuber, like the only person who's at that absolute top level of cultural, literary, social analysis with academic rigor. And it's okay. It's okay if you haven't started watching all of FD Signifier's videos, but if you're watching my videos and not watching his videos, just stop watching my videos for a while and catch up with his. So he recently did a video about the manosphere. I'm not interested in the manosphere so much as I am in this idea that he brought up. So intersectionality is an approach, right? It's a theoretical approach where it really started because there was a lack, in feminist studies, there was a lack of understanding that the experience for, say, a black woman is different than the experience for a white woman. And we need to discover the intersection of those differing identities, of black and gay, or black and woman and gay, or Native American and woman, or Native American woman and gay, right? All those kinds of intersectional places where we can study the different things, the different challenges that exist for each of those intersections. What FD Signifier did, and I think you have to be, I think in order to do this in a honest way, you have to not be a white man, a straight white man like myself, to propose this, because it seems too self-serving. It runs way too close to sort of Trumpish aggrievement. To just study white, male, cis, straight men as an intersection. To have that kind of intersectional approach. To not treat it as the default. Because remember before I was talking about the difficulty that young white men have in trying to feel interesting. Because society treats us, history treats us, as the default. I mean, right? Isn't that the default setting of emojis on your phone? Isn't that right? Isn't it still that way? Yet, despite this default status, or this perceived default status, if we're actually going to move society forward towards a less racist place, a less unjust place, we need to reject that concept. We need to accept FD Signifier's work, which is very interesting. Again, he talks a lot about spree shooters in particular. He did his graduate studies in there. It's very interesting work. And, analyze, what are some of the things about being a straight white male? Now, of course, Jordan Peterson talks about this stuff as well. But when he does it, he is doing this to try to get it's sort of a sham and a scam to get young white men to feel bad for themselves and to sort of give him money and to create this sense of identity and to sort of act like we're the ones who have been wronged, right? Which is not the case. But yet, there are things which are worth studying. In particular, as FD Signifier points out, suicide. I mean, according to different studies, according to FD Signifier, I'm going to trust his sources on this, up to 70% of suicides are by white males. 70%. Okay, that's a lot. What does that sadness tell you? Where does this come from? Now, he puts forth the idea, and I think it's a very solid one, that a lot of it has to do with being in late-stage capitalism, in which white men benefit from it, but also to a certain extent we're used as fuel, but also we're constantly, quite often, disappointed. When you are born the default, when you are told your whole life that you have been given advantages and that you are supposed to rule the world, and then you turn 17, when I turned 18 and I never even had a girlfriend and I was taking a year off and I was working at Blockbuster for $4.25, I'm not ruling the world. I was supposed to rule the world, you get that sort of feeling where's all this privilege? Now, I want to be very careful here. None of this is accurate. It's not that the privilege isn't there. It's that some white men can't feel it or can't see it. And this can lead to a kind of nihilism. And FD Signifier has a lot of hard time pronouncing Nietzsche's name, and I don't know how to pronounce his name either. So let's all agree to never pronounce Nietzsche's name properly, because why not? He talks about the forms of nihilism, and in particular the form of active nihilism, in which you rejoice in the meaninglessness. And if you're remembering that I'm talking about Post Malone here, I think you're starting to understand what I'm talking about. I'm talking about themes of suicide and rejoicing in sadness and meaninglessness. Now, another very, very good video which I suggest you watch, I'll put that in the comments as well, is an interview with another great YouTuber, Bad Faith, where FD Signifier is discussing these, and they kind of flesh out some of these ideas. And this is going back to that idea that, no white, cis, male, straight male is really marginalized. But that doesn't mean that to some cis, white, straight males, the marginalization doesn't feel real. And that's what creates aggrieved entitlement, which was very beautifully summarized by a comment in one of FD Signifier's in the comment section by someone named Mother's Basement, who I think is an anime YouTuber. I wouldn't say I can't stand anime, but I've never discovered anything that I like about anime. But I respect people who like it, I'm sure it's great. Society doesn't set up white dudes to fail, but it does nothing to prepare us for failure. And that's getting back to that idea of me working at Blockbuster not knowing if I was going to go to college, right? We're not set up to fail. We're set up to succeed. We're set up to have all this privilege. But what do we do when we fail? So the thing that FD Signifier emphasizes and really goes into is in this idea of the power fantasy. The power fantasy that is read into edgelord figures. In popular culture like Tyler Durden of Fight Club, or Joker, or Batman, the idea that like these great figures who reject society and just, they see through the BS of society because they were supposed to get more, and they serve that role of like, wow, maybe I'm the Joker, maybe I'm Batman, maybe I'm Tyler Durden, maybe I'm Post Malone. Post Malone is a power fantasy for white men. He is. He's got all the romance of a SoundCloud rapper, and don't get it twisted. All these rappers, they are romantic poets like 19th century England. Just forget it. Just good Lord, Hugo would go to town on these dashing young men. Like SoundCloud rappers are these romantic figures, and we look up to them and we listen to them. But as always it is with hip hop, when most of the audience is white males, we can't actually really identify with them. We can identify with them spiritually or emotionally. When I listen to Backseat Freestyle by Kendrick Lamar, I feel like he's talking to me, but I can't identify with his experience that brought him to write that music. So here we have a upper middle class white guy from a nice enough home, a privileged upbringing, who gets to do all this stuff that all these SoundCloud rappers do. Cars and money and women and drugs. But also, he's completely suicidal and self-destructive and sees his own hypocrisy and the hypocrisy in the world. That's why I think Post Malone is an interesting figure in here, in this idea of the intersection of whiteness and maleness and straightness. That he can be this power fantasy. Like for me, when I was at Blockbuster, we were working for $4.25 an hour. Then I got promoted to manager, assistant manager, $6.50 an hour. He really does represent that, while also expressing through his many, 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 many references to sadness, self-destruction, and suicide. It's not just Juice WRLD. It's something else. It's something which I think might be particularly white and particularly male. Now let's get into my review. I'm going to segue into my review by doing a single textual analysis of one song through this lens of the intersection of whiteness and maleness. And I want to thank FD Signifier. I'm a Patreon and I send him messages every once in a while, and he responds when he can. He's a big deal. I hope I did service to his work. And if I didn't, not just him, anybody can call me to task for not properly representing his work, because nothing's worse than being badly quoted by somebody. So the song I'm going to talk about is called Lemon Tree. I'll include a link to it up there. You can click on the banana up there. Now, I don't think this is a Simpsons reference, but it's the first time in an album where I think there's a couple Simpsons references. And we're going to talk about the song Lemon Tree and analyze the lyrics through this lens. A little less sour, we're rotten by the hour, and my heart's rotten too. In every film I watch, I'm on the side of the bad guy. Now, if you're a fan of FD Signifier's work, this is very clear. Every film I watch, I'm on the side of the bad guy. This is this reference to saying that he is being, for lack of a better term, an edgelord who sees Darth Vader and Thanos and Joker and says, that's who I am. I can't live with society. I have to fight against it. And then we get to the chorus, and the chorus itself is a masterpiece of this perspective. And I want to be very clear. I laughed my ass off the first time I heard this. I derisively smirked at this chorus. I couldn't believe it. The self-pity of this little rich boy. I couldn't believe it. But as we learn, I think it's actually important to have empathy and try to understand it and not just laugh at it. Some people got an apple. Some people got a tangerine. Look around and all I see is people happy with what they're given. Life is pretty sweet, I'm told. I guess I'm ish out of luck growing a lemon tree. I'm gonna burn it down and grow me something better. So he's unlucky. He's got a lemon tree. Other people have apple trees and tangerine trees. And they're lucky because what they can grow is sweet. But him, this life he's had to live, the struggle he's had as a middle-class white guy who became a 1% white guy through his appropriation, adoption, and successful performance of an African-American art, he's just got a lemon tree, man. He's got no luck. And the reason this is such a perfect metaphor for the whole question is that this is a very good expression of how it feels. Like, I got nothing, man. That guy's got an apple tree. You know, he's more handsome than me, or he's taller than me. That person's got a tangerine. Their dad works for a TV company, and he got a job as an associate producer, and he's going to be a producer in 5 years, you know? Life isn't sweet. I got a lemon tree. Where for most of America, the America that is not white, male, cis, and straight, they just don't even get a tree. There should be a part on this chorus where some guy goes in, hey, who's giving out trees? You got a tree? You know how much you could do with a lemon tree? That's got vitamin C. You're never going to get rickets, you know? I'd kill for a tree. Most of America would kill for a tree. But as a white, cis male, we're all given trees. And truthfully, if you're one of the people who gets a lemon tree, you can feel that as oppression or as bad luck. Now, the next verse is where it really gets crazy. Blood on my hands, I'm on the fence, I double down, a swing and a miss, I kick in the ribs, I'm trouble now. Came from the dirt, back in the ground when I die, but I'ma survive, I got my ways. Came from the dirt? Not sure. Not sure he came from the dirt. So what we have here is a song where it's not the voice for the voiceless. It's a voice for the voice. It's a voice for the well-voiced. But still socially estranged. Still a victim of social expectations. Still suffering from patriarchy. Right? Men suffer from patriarchy too. Still suffering from late-stage capitalism, still suffering from mental illness, still suffering from substance abuse, still suffering from repeated suicidal ideations. A lot of these things, some of these things, are actually more pronounced or differently expressed in that intersection of whiteness and maleness. Perhaps he's not doing all this just to make himself interesting. But perhaps this is a real expression of who he is. Even a rich white guy who came from a good home can still be sad and have nothing. And this is where I realize something. Post Malone is not just a white version of Juice WRLD. He's a hip-hop version of Morrissey and Kurt Cobain. That's it. It's not that he's going to steal hip-hop. It's that hip-hop is going to keep stealing from rock and indie and all other forms of music which over the past 50 years have predominantly been the domain of white males. That is what is happening. That when I was listening to Kurt Cobain and listening to his troubles and his expressions and all that stuff, or Morrissey, or any kind of outsider hero, anybody who spoke for the downtrodden, the people like me who were kind of picked on a little bit in middle school, you know what I mean? Like, that's the transition that's happening. We shouldn't think of it as stealing from African American culture. We should think of it as African American culture continuing to siphon all expression in the world into hip-hop. And I am here for it. So, how about a review, huh? How about I tell you what I actually think about the song, the production, of it all. It's a good song. I like it. I mean, it opens up with this kind of like pitched up, like the sound is kind of weird and pitched, great atmosphere for the sad words and the sad world, and this vibrato. Dude, Post Malone's voice is insane. It's insane. I mean, I guess some people find it annoying, but listening to this album like 3 times, it's gorgeous. He's got a gorgeous voice. He really does. It's funny because at a certain point he even says better with like a country twang, and the way that the guitar sounds on here does sound quite countryish at times, but also that kind of over pronunciation is a lot like Kurt Cobain as well. There's like a keyboard solo that actually sounds like a country music guitar solo, and we see him just sort of going through all these identities at once. You know, and that's, again, one of these sort of crucial things about being an angry young white man, is just trying to figure out what kind of person. Like, am I a country person, an alt person, a pop person, a rap person? The drums come in very pleasantly at some point for some nice dynamics, kind of a country rhythm there. And then the vocal production at the end is just beautiful, lots of voices by the end. Life is pretty sweet, I'm told. It's just very just lush and beautiful. Turns out, this song was produced largely by a lot of the people who also produced that Jack Harlow album. Kind of interesting. So I'm going to go through the rest of the album now, a little bit quicker, a lot quicker. I'm not going to spend too much more time on that intersectionality question. I'm going to start off with the first track, Reputation. And this is a thesis statement for the album, or at least for half of the album. A sad, sad piano. Reminds me a little bit of Nigel Tufnell's composition, Lick My Love Pump, but this crazy vibrato, just very moving. I just cannot lie. His voice moves me. I can't lie. A direct quotation, or paraphrasing, of Kurt Cobain. You're the superstar, entertain us. Here we are now, entertain us, obviously, from Nirvana. And then kill myself today, kill it all away. The first time we have the specter of suicide coming up here. And then there's this whole like leading thing that leads up to this emotional heart of the song with these synthesizers in the back, kind of subtle, very talented production. And there's this emotional part. I was born to take pills. I was born to F hoes. I was born to F up. I was born, what a shame. I was born, what a shame. It's sad. There's some cello in here, then some cool drum sounds, and this over and over again with Take My Own Life Just to Save Yours. And then the first appearance of him talking about choking on cigarettes. I've had a little pet theory going on here for a while that the cigarette companies are really trying to integrate themselves into music. You know, Oliver Tree had a song about smoking. There's that song Marlboro Country that got big on TikTok. Joe Budden was wearing a cool cigarette hat in a video a couple months ago. And I do wonder, actually I don't wonder, I'm basically positive that Post Malone is being paid by cigarette companies. I'm sure he actually has a cigarette habit, but the way he makes it cool in his videos, it does seem like there's this effort to rehabilitate cigarettes as a cool thing that cool people do. So this is the first reference to choking on cigarettes. I should also say, I was never like a full edgelord, like I was never like right wing or whatever, right? I was never like joking around with being racist or seriously racist. But I was looking for some kind of identity, and I refused to do drugs. So like when I was a young man living in France, especially when I worked over there, I smoked a lot of cigarettes, and I drank a fair amount. And I was kind of looking for something to make me interesting, like I know that. Like, and I wrote a lot of songs about like smoking back then, because like I felt like that gave me purpose, that gave me something interesting about me. When in reality, it gave me bad breath. It made it really hard to get over colds. Underrated bad part of smoking, it's not just the death, but you get a cold and you smoke, that sucker's gonna last like 8 days. And especially if you have asthma like I do. The next song is called Cooped Up. Hey, Post Malone, which album is it? I did the research, okay? If you look at my notes, I don't have a script, I have notes. If you look at my notes, you'll see before each song I write either Sui or Pop. Sui for suicide fuel and Pop for a pop song. Sometimes both. But the song is evenly divided. 7 songs are suicide odes, 7 songs are pop songs. I prefer the suicide odes, they feel more honest, but it's funny. It's funny to have this album which is doing all this other stuff, and I just talked about the intersectionality, blah, 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 all that stuff. But then we have the pop side of this album, which basically has nothing to do with any of that. It's just a dude who's like working with somebody who works a lot with Justin Bieber and Kanye and just super producer. Louis Bell, I think is his name. And it's this weird paradox of the album, where a song like this is like just, and like it's the paradox of Post Malone himself. Like, dude, do you want to kill yourself or do you want to be in a Doritos commercial? Like, I'm not saying you have to choose one. It is a thing, and if you're not a white male, you don't know this. When you turn 20, PepsiCo approaches you and says, "Would you like to kill yourself or do a Doritos commercial?" Because you can't do both. It's true. It's part of our privilege. You know, it's like, and he did these Jägermeister commercials as well. So it's like, is he just a pop sellout who's just like dressing up as somebody who's really sad? I don't think so. I think he's really both things. But this song, he's talking about Gucci and Birkins and drugs, and I don't know. I do like that he says, "I've been effing cooped up," and I heard that first as "I've been effing cool Tom." So I imagine this is like an ode to a man, like to having sex with a man named Tom. Like, you know, like a lot of times you have like a lot of friends with the same name. So you have like Big Tom and Little Tom. I knew a couple guys like that in college. So there's Cool Tom. So I like to imagine that Post Malone's been effing Cool Tom. Which of the two Toms, I would say Little Tom was the cool one. And Roddy Ricch is on here. He's fine. I like his voice. I know there's a lot of hate around him, but I think he's actually pretty good. Next song is Lemon Tree, which I've already discussed. Next song is called Wrapped Around Your Finger. Not a cover of The Police. This is like just a pop song, just a sort of 80s pop song. The chorus is done like 10 times, all about a girl who doesn't care about him. A little bit of incel hint there, maybe, you know, that like this girl doesn't know he's a singer, so she's not into him. I will say, there's like 5 writers on this song. Why are these metaphors so mixed? I'm wrapped around your finger, caught up in your orbit, spinning like a bullet. I'm gonna, no. Wrapped around your finger is one metaphor, okay? Caught up in your orbit is another metaphor, okay? Spinning like a bullet is another metaphor. It's way too confusing. It doesn't work at all. It actually makes me insane. Like when I hear this chorus, it just drives me mad. But I really like, there's one part in here where it drops out and it's just like a bass and a voice, and he's like trying to tell this girl how rich he is, but she just doesn't care. I've got your mom and dad's house on my pinky. He's just so likable, you know? He just is. Like his voice and his, even though he's doing this whole like greaseball attitude and all that, I don't know. Like there's just something about him that just pulls through. Next song is called I Like You, another one of the pop songs with Doja Cat. I feel like this song was written and given to Justin Bieber, but he was too busy getting a tattoo and his fitted cap fitted to his head that he just decided not to do this. It's catchy. It has Dua Lipa on it. It's weird because like Dua Lipa is an object of a song by Jack Harlow, and this song reminds me a lot of First Class and sort of its feel and its pop success. Next song is called I Cannot Be, and this is a sadder song. Despite the fact this is a sadder song, this is still just a pop song. It's not one of the Suicide Fuel songs. A song about being like constrained by I assume by a woman, but I think you could also say by a record label. Just a straight pop song. This pop identity does bug me though, because it totally undermines my other point of him being the rap Kurt Cobain, you know? Because again, you can be like Kurt Cobain or you can do a Doritos commercial. You can't do both. But maybe this is the reality of millennials and Gen Zs, right? Or a term I learned while watching that FD Signifier video, Gen A. Is that happening? I mean, he's a sociology dude, so he would know. I wouldn't. But really? Are we going to Gen A? We're sticking with the alphabet, huh? Oh well. Like, maybe that's just the reality because like sort of selling out and being everything all the time just makes sense. Maybe if there are young white men, it's hard not to say that without sounding like Jordan Peterson, young men, who identify with Post Malone and who have this sense of a power fantasy with him, maybe the fact that he does pop songs as well actually helps it because it shows how powerful and able he is to go in all these different areas. Gunna is on this song, and I don't think I've ever listened to Gunna. Like I've heard him on 1,000 songs, but I've never like listened to him like very carefully. And it's probably the best verse on the album. Probably. It's good. I really like his flow and his charisma here. Next song is called Insane. Another kind of pop song. This feels like he knew that the album is not a very rap-like album. Like there's not a lot of rap music on this album, so I'm just gonna make a rap song. And I love this song. I can't help it. It's got this great like slow rising arpeggiator, and it's all talking about like having sex with your girl and then giving her back to you. She was classy, now she's nasty. It's just a total power trip. We both have teeth, but it's different. This is the central theme of the album, teeth. 12 Karat, heartache, because, toothache, because he's very rich and he has diamond teeth, but he has a toothache. So we should like feel for him, right? Lots of teeth talk on this album. We both have teeth, but we're different. And then we get to the song Love, Hate Letter to Alcohol, which I'm going to put into the suey side of this album. Because the obsession with alcoholism and the rejoicing of alcoholism is itself a death impulse, right? Like the love of alcohol is fundamental, to an extent, like the love of cigarettes, a death wish. A lot has been made in my own brain by the fact that Fleet Foxes did this, that Robin Pecknold made this song for him. He wrote a whole tweet about it. The fact that, like when we're talking about like white privilege, like of all the great rappers that are out there that are doing interesting stuff with melody, the one that gets like one of the best melody writers and best voices in the history of music is post-effing Malone. Damn it. But it's nice. It's cool kind of metal guitar. It feels like maybe they were goofing around when they wrote it, but the Fleet Foxes choral effects is quite nice, beautiful harmony. It's kind of wasted. The Fleet Foxes are kind of wasted here. The way he refers to this alcohol is he had 32 teeth and some went away. I'm telling you, there's a lot of teeth on this album. You're the reason I got my ass kicked, but the only way I can drown my sadness, this relationship to alcohol. And again, I swear this is a paraphrase of a Simpsons line. Homer who says, to alcohol, the cause of and solution to all of life's problems. It's a famous Homer line. Next song is called Wasting Angels, another kind of suey song, talking about cigarettes again, great production of the voice and synthesizers, very kind of poppy chorus at the end. I like the lyric, devil on my back, so I sleep on my chest. But don't sleep on your chest, it's really bad for your back, especially if you got scoliosis like me. He talks about being sane before the fame, and I do wonder, like, to blame fame for his insanity does undercut a little bit of my point as well. But I don't know. I think fame is an amplifier. That's what I tell my kids at least. Fame can't make you anything, but it can amplify everything that you are. So I don't think he was sane before. Almost like a gospel ending here, like, I should listen to you if I never have. This whole idea of like an angel who's like probably a woman who he can depend on and he's wasting her. Next song is called Euthanasia, and it's the best song on the album, and it's not even close. This is an unqualified good song, just beautiful. This production with this slow beep that I think sounds like an EKG, at the hospital. Beep, beep. The first line, I took a cig from my ash can, doesn't bother me much. From my days of trying to be edgy by smoking cigarettes, I showed them. Old cigarettes are terrible. Like cigarettes, like when you smoke, a cigarette's great. But like there's a desperation point where if you don't have cigarettes, you have to go into your ashtray and get a cigarette and smoke it. And it, like nothing smells like that. It's like the equivalent of like dropping a piece of pizza in the toilet and then eating it because you're hungry. It's just so gross. So this is a very visceral thing. And again, he talks about losing a tooth. And then it becomes this whole ode to suicide. When I go out, it won't hurt at all. Very pulsing bass. There's sort of a predictable layering in this song, but it's really well done. He talks about I should crack one open to celebrate being clean. going back to my life as a smoker, addiction's funny because when I had quit smoking, after 2 days, I said I should celebrate with a cigarette. Like I wasn't being ironic. I wasn't trying to be funny. That's what your brain does to you. So this is really the best, in my opinion, the best of Post Malone. Because it's a very honest desperation, a very honest sadness and extension. And this is the question, like, is this good or is this bad? You know, is it good or is it bad that these songs exist? I think it's good. I think it's good because having these kinds of power fantasies and also having artists who are expressing the kind of desperation and sadness you feel, I don't think he is encouraging people to kill themselves. The same way I don't think that Morrissey did or Kurt Cobain did. I think it's to the opposite. I think it's that we can like feel seen by their sadness, by their desperation. You know? So if I was back there and Blockbuster Video again and I heard this song and I felt this, I wouldn't feel like, you're right, Mr. Malone, I should kill myself. Or Mr. Post. More like, yeah, I feel that way too sometimes. I don't know, it's cathartic. Next song is called When I'm Alone. Worst song on the album, don't like this one. It's just kind of an indie pop punk song. Just kind of a reminder that like this guy doesn't have any musical identity at all. He just do whatever the hell he wants. The next song, Waiting for a Miracle, is another one of these songs where you do have to wonder, you know, like when I said before, like he's not encouraging people to kill themselves. We've just got piano and his beautiful vibrato voice. Oh my God, just take the firearm from me. Holy F, I understand that I'm too weak. Oh my God, just shut me up for heaven's sake. So I load one round, I'm scared to die while I'm awake. So I close my eyes and wait for a miracle. A very bizarre and sad idea of him wanting to kill himself and not being able to do it, not having the strength. Again, I think, in the end, if there are more songs by powerful, influential, straight white men about suicide or about feelings of alienation, it will be better for other straight white men who are feeling those feelings. I think it's healing. That's my take on it. So, oh, damn it. I forgot to tell you to subscribe. There's no way you're not subscribed if you're 42 minutes into this video, right? But smash the like bucket. Tell me what you think about my stupid ideas here. What's going on? Damn it. I'm so bad at YouTube. I'm pretty good at it. I'm getting better at it. All right, next song is called One Right Now, featuring The Weeknd. And it's amazing having The Weeknd and Post Malone on here because they both have unique voices in pop. And you realize this is like, I'm squinting here on purpose because like Jack Harlow had a song at about the same point in his album with Drake. And now we have Post Malone and The Weeknd. And you realize Jack Harlow is to Drake as Post Malone is to The Weeknd. Oh, it all comes clear. These Canadian gods of pop, these non-white Canadian gods of pop, who like do things, and then these are the white American privileged versions of them in a very similar way. How like Jack Harlow's flow when it's really good is as good as Drake's flow is when it's really bad, and like the whole suicide and self-destructive stuff that The Weeknd always sings about, you know, is being sung about by Post Malone, whose voice when it's really good is as good as The Weeknd's voice is when it's mezzo, right? Like there's an interesting comparison there. Bizarre, you know, and it's an okay song. It's sort of like the Fleet Foxes thing where it's like, you'd think that the songs with The Weeknd and with the Fleet Foxes would be the best songs on an album by an artist who I don't like that much. But actually, I love Insane. I love Euthanasia. I love the next song. I love San Dimas Football. The next song is called New Recording, January 3rd, 2020. And this is very clearly supposed to be the authenticity of the phone. Using an iPhone, and you hit record on a voice memo, and that's what this is. And he just repeats the lyrics from Euthanasia, and you realize it's him playing guitar and singing these words about taking the cigarette from the ash can and losing a tooth and wanting to kill himself. It's a beautiful ending. It's the 7th Suicide song, which balances the album quite perfectly, but it shows off again that he is a real musician who really can write. And when he wants to, when he's not like trying to make a pop song with Justin Bieber's people with Doja Cat, he can do this sort of really interesting, deeply insightful, deeply moving, deeply cathartic music. So there's my review of Post Malone. I never thought I would talk about Post Malone, ever. I thought I would always hate him forever and ever and ever. Yet here I am. So I'm going to go get a Dorito tattooed on my face. Until next time, there's the camera. Oh, wait a minute. What tattoo should I get? That's how I get engagement. If I got a face tattoo, what should I get? Okay, there's the camera.